Hey everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And this week we're looking at a car that really took the SUV world by storm when it was redesigned for 2016, the Mazda CX-9. Between its exceptionally good looks, its great fuel economy with surprisingly good performance out of a fairly small engine, its fantastic standard equipment, and really exceptional interior, it actually won our Best Surprise of the Year award for 2016 here at Family Wheels. It also won our Best Interior Award for 2016, really punching way above its weight class when it comes to what you get for your dollar, and also the level of attention to detail that we're seeing here too. This is based on the same Kodo design philosophy that we've seen in the CX-5, now the CX-3, so many other Mazda vehicles that are out there. It looks phenomenal. So after that amazing redesign of the CX-9 for 2016, we're not seeing a lot of big changes for 2017 in this car. We have city brake support systems now standard on all trims here in Canada from the GS upward. That means that from 4 to 30 kilometers an hour, if the vehicle's crawling along in traffic and then it senses that you're not braking to an obstacle up ahead of you, most likely another car, then it's going to brake on your behalf or at least slow you down so that the collision isn't as severe. We also have an auto-dimming rear view mirror on all trims of this vehicle in Canada for 2017 as well. Other than that, pretty much the same car. Now the last time around we were in the top of the line signature trim, which was absolutely mind-blowingly good. Such a beautiful interior. This time around we're in the one tier below that, the GT trim. That's actually the best-selling trim here in Canada. So let's hop on board, compare this to the signature trim, the other trims that are out there in the CX-9, and see what the best bang for your buck is this week on Family Wheels. Well, one thing right away that impresses me about the CX-9 is its standard equipment. At $35,600, which is the base price up here in Canada, you're getting 3 rows of seating, you're getting heated front seats, you're getting an 8-way power adjustable driver's seat, you're getting LED headlights, LED tail lights, 3-zone climate control, a backup camera, and a 7-inch infotainment system. It's a really impressive package, with the exception of one thing, which is all-wheel drive. It doesn't come as standard. A lot of the other competitors are starting to realize that Canadians don't really buy front-wheel drive SUVs, so they're offering all-wheel drive on all trims of their vehicles. If you want all-wheel drive on that base trim, you're going to pay about $2,500 on top of that base price. Now, one thing you're going to get on all CX-9s, no matter the trim, is the same power plant, which is a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, and that replaces a more traditional V6 from the previous generation of this car. Now, that has a lot of people gun shy. When I reviewed it in 2016, and I said, guess what? It's far peppier than I expected it to be. People kind of have their doubts, but I'm telling you, it has 227 horsepower, and it's very eager, even off the line. There isn't a lot of turbo lag going on. It does really well on the highway. It has excellent torque figures compared to many of its competitors. Everything from the Nissan Pathfinder up to the Acura MDX, it actually has better torque, which gives you that punch off the line, and it also has really excellent fuel economy. So Mazda has really found a winning combination here with this 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. Now, when you put a smaller 4-cylinder engine like this into a 7-passenger SUV, something's gonna have to give. And in the case of the CX-9, it's its towing capacity. While the average in this segment is about 5,000 pounds, this has a 3,500 pound capacity. And if you do have a larger family, as a 7-passenger SUV might suggest, then it's not gonna give you the size of trailer that you might be looking for, or boat for that matter, to tow behind this thing. Otherwise, in terms of performance, a couple of things that stand out for me in the CX-9 are ride comfort, but I am noticing that there is a bit of lean when I get into really harsh corners at decent speed, but I'd rather have a vehicle that's a more comfortable ride and have a bit of bob and weave in the corners than something that's gonna be really harsh for daily driving. And of course, along with ride comfort, people also want to know about the noise level here in the cabin. Mazda has done an excellent job of sound dampening here in the CX-9, and it means that at 100 kilometers an hour with our decibel reader, we hit 61 decibels this week. That's really good and puts it right into luxury SUV territory. And that's what really impresses me about this car, is that depending on the trim that you look at, it really is a bit of a chameleon. The lower level trims are able to compete with cheaper, lower end vehicles, things like the Nissan Pathfinder, the Ford Explorer, the Kia Sorento and lower trims. And then when you bounce up into the two highest trims, like this GT that I'm in here this week, or of course that amazing signature trim, I think that we're looking at more in line with the Acura MDX, even the Volvo XC90 or the Audi Q7. We look at that signature trim that I was in last year, and attention to detail, quality of materials, build quality, all put it in line with the $90,000 Audi Q7 that I was driving last year, and this is $50,000 in that signature trim. It really is a remarkable vehicle that spans those various price points so wonderfully. Now, if you do want to splash out and get into some of these higher level trims, let's break that down for you. Here in the GT trim, you're getting things like 20-inch wheels, you're getting a Bose sound system, and you're getting this real aluminum inlay, which I think really sets off the interior. It looks really good. On top of that, here in our tester, we also have the $1,500 technology package, which is giving you things like lane departure warning systems, lane keep assist, forward collision mitigation braking at higher speeds than that city system that I was already telling you about, which is now standard for 2017. But the thing that bothers me about this system is that Toyota is really making it mainstream. The Highlander, as of 2017, is making that standard on all vehicles with all-wheel drive in the Highlander lineup. And so since we're seeing that become so much more common in vehicles, I feel like in these higher trims, it's something that just should come as standard. Now, this means that with that package here, as tested this week, this GT trim comes in at $47,400 before tax up here in Canada. Bounce up into the signature trim for an extra $3,000, just over 50 grand. You're getting rosewood inlay, which looks phenomenal. You're getting Napa leather, signature lighting, and you're also getting some really high-end stitching throughout the interior. But if Mazda is really serious about being a player in the real luxury segment, I think those higher level trims are missing a few things, like ventilated front seats, heated second row seats, a panorama sunroof, and a 360-degree wraparound camera. Now, speaking of things that pop up on the infotainment system, it's not my favorite system out there. First up, when you're at a standstill, you have the option of both using the touchscreen or this dial down here. But once you start moving, you have to use the dial. And it's not particularly intuitive, and a lot of the menus are really quite buried, which means that I've spent a bit more time than I'd like this week looking away from the road and onto the infotainment system screen. Also, there's not much of a home screen. If we look at this compared to, say, Ford, Kia, those offer up really excellent one-stop shops where you can see everything from your phone information, what's playing on the stereo, and your navigation. We don't have that as an option here in the CX-9. And this is a big thing when it comes to infotainment systems these days. If you really like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integrating your phone into your infotainment system, it's not an option here on this car. Strange oversight from Mazda there. Now, one thing that happened to me last year, just after I'd wrapped up shooting the video with you in the CX-9, is that I was about to hand the keys in, so I put it through the car wash, used the power wash wand, and as I was doing that, I actually managed to flake some of the paint off of the hood. Now, that was in that white paint color that we had in the signature trim. I haven't been able to recreate that problem here in this red in the GT that we're driving this week, but it's something to keep your eye out for in the CX-9. I'm not sure if that was an anomaly. Not the kind of thing you want to start to see happen. Something that's great news for 2017 with the CX-9, though, is that it has a top Safety Pick Plus rating from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. It doesn't get any higher than that, and it means that it's going to be safe for hauling your crew around. So, let's take my mountain bike out of the back of this thing. It does fit, by the way. I had a great ride, and we'll hop into the second and third row and see how this thing does for shuttling around that crew. Well, one of the really impressive things in the CX-9 for me is that it looks like a fairly small SUV from the outside, and then you get inside here, and each of these three rows is more spacious than I'd expect it to be. For example, I put the driver's seat as far back as it can possibly go for somebody who's, say, comfortably going to be able to drive in here that's about 6'5", and I've still got room here in the second row. For me, it's 6'2". Headroom's good, my legroom just starting to max out, even with the seat as far back as it'll go. As well, we've got some nice attention to detail back here in the GT trim, along with this aluminum inlay I was talking about, nice soft touch surfaces. The seats are really comfortable here in the second row. When we look at this compared to the Honda Pilot, you actually get more legroom here in the second row than you do in that vehicle, and it's about right on par with the Ford Explorer in terms of second row comfort. But it's when you get into the third row that things are a little bit tighter than the Pilot. You have about 2 inches less legroom here in this vehicle than you would see in that Honda equivalent. And that really matters when you're dealing with a third row, because those third rows are famously tight and uncomfortable. On the plus side, one thing that you can do here in this car is slide these second row seats pretty much all the way up to the front row seats. It totally diminishes your legroom here in the second row, but if you've got younger kids up here, or if you do want extra cargo capacity in that cargo area behind us here, then you can do that by sliding this second row right up front. One thing I'm not so pleased about here in the CX-9 is that while many of the competitors out there have figured out a way to give you a very flat floor right across this second row bench, you don't have that here in this vehicle. What you wind up with is this rather large hump right here in the middle of the car. It means that if you are stuck in this center position, that is going to be a pretty uncomfortable ride for you. Now, when it comes to car seats in this vehicle, another pretty pleasant surprise. Because of the amount of second row legroom that we have here in this car that I've already talked about, you can have front facing car seats, no problem in this vehicle. Rear facing is also really excellent. With our measuring tape from the back of the front seat cushion up to the glove box, we're measuring 28 inches. Now that's just slightly more than another direct competitor to this car, and that's the Toyota Highlander. But I did find the Highlander was much more uncomfortable. So between the legroom, the seat comfort, and the fit and finish, this is a really excellent second row. And there are a couple of other little things that make it stand out as well. First up is this third zone of climate control, which again comes standard on all trims of the CX-9, unlike many of its competitors where you have to get into the really high-level trims in order to get that. And then here on our tester here this week, we also have these built-in sunshades, which if you've had a young kid in a car before, you know how invaluable these things can be, because the aftermarket ones with the suction cups, they always fall off, kids tear them down, they rip, they tear, whereas these ones, they're built right in, you don't have to worry about them as much, and also you can still put the window up and down if your kid needs a little bit of air. Seriously, those are a big deal. So all of those things together mean that this is really one of my favorite second rows on the market right now here in the CX-9. Meanwhile, here at the trunk end of things, we have over 1,000 liters of capacity in the CX-9 when we've got that third row down. And that puts it right on par with other SUVs in this segment, but not nearly as good as we see in the Honda Pilot, which gives you over 1,500 liters. But if you do slide that second row forward, again, that's an option, and that's going to give you a lot more space, but you're going to soak up a lot of that second row legroom in the process. But just to put that in perspective, when you really need to throw a lot of stuff back here, we had 2 full-size adult mountain bikes in this thing earlier this week with just the front tires taken off, front wheels, and I was still able to fit 3 people in this thing, 2 in the front row and then 1 in this far right position in the second row. So it can eat up a lot of stuff when it needs to. Put that third row up and your trunk space is going to be pretty limited. You know, we could fit our standardized trunk test, which is a stroller, a couple of bags of groceries, a diaper bag, a backpack, and a basketball. We could fit it in there, but it required some clever packing. Throw that second row down, or that third row down, and you've got a lot more space at hand. You'd still have room for your family dog, or even 2 of them back here with all that gear that I'm talking about. Now, there are a couple of things, speaking of the family dog, that bother me about the trunk in the CX-9. First up, check it out. It's a fairly high sill. So if you have smaller dogs or an older family dog who's, you know, aging a little bit, they might have a hard time getting up there, making that jump. And the other issue that I've got is the height of the actual tailgate itself. I've adjusted this to its maximum height, and even still at 6'2", I'm bumping into this thing all the time. It'd be nice if it could be raised up just a little bit more for taller people like myself. But in general, a very usable trunk here in this vehicle. Just watch your head when you go to use it. Well, while the Mazda CX-9 is really not a volume seller up here in Canada, I mean, we look at year-to-date sales, and 7 times more CX-5s were sold this year than the CX-9s. However, if you're weighing out the benefits of going for that smaller CX-5 or this vehicle, really think long and hard about the long-term plans that you have. If you're thinking of expanding your family, if you've got carpooling in your future, longer trips out to the cabin, bigger dogs, this would certainly be the better choice for you. And it's still got great fuel economy. It's still a great bang for your buck. And I think that in terms of looks, it's even better looking than the CX-5. I love the lines on this vehicle. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the CX-9, maybe which trim you're leaning toward. Please leave a comment below, subscribe while you're at it, and then check out our report card at familywheels.ca that I put together on this vehicle, as well as a percentage score that we've given the CX-9. Next time I see you, we are in a much larger vehicle, even larger than this, this, the Ram Power Wagon, a beast of a machine. Let's see how it stacks up 7 days from now. Until then, have a great week.